Hello, welcome back to another week preview with the Transfer Portal CFB presented by NoContextCFB. We could finally dive into week 3. I'm sorry, week 2. You were so good to us in so many ways and bad for some. I'm sorry, but we've got to put you in the past. It's all about what's to come in the next few days. And we are joined by a great guest today, David Cunningham of Tech Sideline. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys for having me on. I've really enjoyed reading and listening to everything, all the content you guys are putting out, along with all of the fantastic memes that come with No Context College Football. And I appreciate you guys having me on.
And we are stoked to have you. Really excited to dive into this slate, share our thoughts and everything. And I'm, of course, joined by Adam and Andrew. And this podcast is brought to you by Run Your Pool. We do a free weekly pick'em pool. We'll have a link in the description below that you could go and check out. It's super easy to sign up. We're picking 10 games. Top 3 finishers will get a prize from Fanatics. Be on the lookout for that. Run Your Pool is a great platform that we're excited to, partner with. And please try and beat us, because I know I ain't the best at picking games.
It's not hard to beat Liam.
Yeah, it ain't hard to beat me. It's not hard at all to beat me. I'm all for talking about literally anything else, though. And I want to dive right into it with maybe the best or most interesting storyline that you're looking forward to in week 3, David.
I'm excited for Purdue and Syracuse. All right, two teams that, okay, they're a lot of times mediocre, right? Purdue has its one big win over Ohio State every now and then. But both of these teams are 2-0 entering Saturday. Syracuse is playing very well. Purdue's played pretty well. It's in the Carrier Dome. I'm interested to kind of see in this first game where these two teams kind of out of conference, non-conference game. Yes, Syracuse already played a team like Louisville, but they don't appear to be very good. So this is going to be an interesting test, I think, to see where those two teams' benchmarks are. And Garrett Schrader at quarterback, I'll talk about him a little bit later. But it's a pretty good matchup on both sides of the ball. Even I think the spread last time I checked was 1 point, so it should be pretty exciting. And it's part of that early slate on Saturday morning.
Who's your gut saying wins? I'm curious.
I think Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. I have never been there, even though I do live on the East Coast. I will go there when I cover Virginia Tech, and when Tech goes there for basketball this year, I will go to the Carrier Dome for the first time. But I do think it'll be a very close game. ESPN2, noon Eastern. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Syracuse wins late. I've really enjoyed watching Garrett Schrader, new offensive coordinator, Robert Nye, who actually came from Virginia this year, and he's kind of rejuvenated this offense. And Garrett Schrader kind of looks like a completely different quarterback. I think Purdue will keep it really, really close, but Syracuse by a field goal.
Okay.
Sean Tucker approves.
Yeah, Sean Tucker. Love him. One storyline that I am very interested in is Texas A&M and their whole quarterback situation. Clearly, it hasn't been working with Haynes King. Jimbo's play calling is from 2014. He doesn't have Jameis Winston anymore. He needs to realize that. I want to see where he goes. How quick is his leash on Haynes King when they play Miami? Because I don't think they can afford to look bad again. So that's something that I'm gonna keep my eye on. I like Haynes King. I just don't think he's that guy for Texas A&M to be where they want to be. So that's my storyline.
I hate to be that guy, but I do got to correct you, David, on one thing. Purdue's actually 101 because they did lose to Penn State to start the year. I'm aware of that because that was I was behind Aiden O'Connell and Jeff Brahms so much before that game, and they owe me a lot of money as far as I'm concerned, but we're not here to talk about that. But but that's honestly really going to be a good game because I like to know how good Purdue's going to be. I picked them to finish second in the Big Ten West. But my best storyline for week 3 is Mickey Joseph in his first game as interim Nebraska head coach. This is going to be his first stint as a college football head coach since 2012 when he was at Langston University, which is in the NAIA. And he actually won a conference title with them in the Central States Football League. This is obviously going up against the Sooners, number 6 team in the country. And I remember, Liam, I think you said this like on the review podcast. You were essentially saying things like Mickey Joseph is not just being thrown into a fire. He's being thrown into what is essentially an abyss, a fire hellhole. He's going up against Satan himself. This is what he's going up against. But, but right now, Nebraska, they're currently 11.5 underdog to Oklahoma. This is in Lincoln. I just want to know, like, how do the players feel? Because, like, I don't think the players were ever, like, fully behind Scott Frost. Maybe Mickey Joseph is that one assistant coach that players look at and they're like, hey, you know what? I could support this guy. Maybe this guy I can trust to, like, lead me in a football unit. And that makes a huge difference when it comes to games against, the likes of an Oklahoma. So Mickey Joseph, he's obviously being dealt with the hardest task possible. He probably wishes that Scott Frost would have hung on just that one more week. But now he's got to go into this Oklahoma game leading the charge. And I'd like to really know, like, how's he going to look? Are Nebraska players going to look more motivated to go into this game?
I'm really eager to see how Mickey Joseph and Nebraska look. Again, for that to be your interim head coach's first game is just not a situation that you should want to put them in. But nonetheless, that's where they find themselves. For me, it's some of the top FCS teams playing Power 5 opponents this week, man. You got Bobby Petrino and Missouri State returning. Petrino returns to Arkansas. How can you not be hyped about that? Jason Shelley's Missouri State team is ranked 5th in the FCS. We'll see how they fare against Arkansas. Montana State and Oregon State are going to play a neutral site game at Providence Park in Portland. Montana State's ranked 4th in the FCS. That's another one to keep an eye on. We all know what the Bison are doing. It's been well documented. NDSU, best team in the FCS for who knows how long. It's been a while. Obviously ranked number 1. They're playing at Arizona. They're the favorite to win the FCS. Again, we'll see how that goes. And then just shout out to Jacksonville State as well. They have a very winnable game at Tulsa. Number 7 Villanova also plays at Army. So some of the top FCS teams playing really good opponents. Year of the upset 2.0 possibly. We'll see how they fare. And now it's only right that we quickly gloss over Notre Dame. What is going on at Notre Dame? I need to know. Please predict the record. What's the record going to be for the rest of the season?
I think Notre Dame is going to finish 7-5, and I think the quarterback troubles, Tyler Buckner getting hurt, really hurts them. As I said earlier, I cover Virginia Tech, and this week Phil Jurkovec, the Boston College quarterback, he's a Notre Dame transfer, right? He was there. I'm sure Notre Dame wishes they still had him because they really don't have a ton of quarterback depth. It's kind of crazy to see the transition from this Notre Dame team who, for a lot of that first week against Boston College, against Ohio State, went toe-to-toe. And then all of a sudden they turn around against Marshall and they look like they can't run out there on the field and complete a 5-yard pass. I think that's a lot of credit to Charles Huff and Marshall, but I think Notre Dame, it's not necessarily an easy schedule by any stretch. I don't think it's going to be fun. I think they could lose this week against Cal, to be honest. I think they scraped some stuff together and finished 7-5 in Marcus Freeman's first year.
Yeah, the good thing about Cal is that they've, Justin Wilcox and what he's built up there in Cal is that's a defensive identity first football team, and that's honestly something that we don't often see that much in the Pac-12. But this is still in South Bend with Cal, so I'm going to give Notre Dame a slight win, probably only a 4 or 3-point win. They're going to get smashed by UNC. That's at UNC. That's going to be at Chapel Hill. They're going to get smashed by BYU and Provo. They'll probably beat Stanford, UNLV. I think they're going to lose at Syracuse when they go to Carrier Dome. I just feel like that just feels like the type of game that they would lose on the road. But the next week, I actually think they're going to come out and surprise a lot of people, and I'm only picking them to win this game because it's in South Bend. I actually think they're going to be Clemson when they meet in South Bend, and the only real reason why I'm picking them to beat Clemson is because I don't trust Dabo to make that 100% switch from DJ Uiagalelei to Cade Klubnik. If DJ is playing that Notre Dame defense, which is still a really good defense, I think DJ is going to struggle in South Bend, and they're probably going to get a defensive touchdown, which will win the game. I think they're gonna truthfully go 6-6. I mean, it's what you're saying about Phil Jurkovic. Him being at BC, they have to go to Notre Dame, their second to last game of the season, which I think is going to be really interesting. That's one game that I'm kind of like flipping back and forth on what they'll win. But once they go to LA to face USC, that's just going to be the absolute most. It's gonna be a bloodbath for Notre Dame, and I've seen enough from USC these last 2 weeks for me to believe that they're gonna beat Notre Dame handily. I think Notre Dame's gonna go 6-6, but I still think that they can make some impressive wins along the way still.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're gonna be 6-6 as well. I think they lose to BYU, USC. Clemson is tricky. It kind of depends on how Clemson's season is going. If they're fighting for a playoff spot, then I don't see them losing to Notre Dame. I just can't see that. But yeah, I mean, you're pretty much covered it. They barely scrape bowl eligibility. I think they lose to North Carolina. I don't. It's crazy how quickly it just went bad.
2 weeks ago, they were a potential playoff threat.
I know. Like 2 weeks ago, everybody was saying that Notre Dame isn't overrated. They're like one of the best teams in the last 10 years. I'm looking at all these stats of them and how they barely lost to some teams and they've been trashing everybody else. And then here we are.
Yeah.
The sad part about it is 2 years ago in that 2020 playoff loss to Alabama, they still played Alabama tougher than any opponent did against Bama the whole season. So they should deserve some merit for that season. But when you look at what happened 2 years later, it's like, I don't even know how many players are even on the same team.
Yeah. And when I'm looking at Notre Dame, I'm right in that same ballpark of 6 wins and maybe a 7. It wouldn't be the most surprising thing if they were able to have this down year and still beat Clemson, because that's their Super Bowl at that point. Marcus Freeman is a good enough head ball coach to motivate them and get that done. But at the end of the day, you have a really good defense. You have an absolutely horrific offense, and that's why I felt they were so overrated coming into the season. You had question marks at quarterback, running back, and receiver. You had a sturdy offensive line that's dealt with a little injury. Then you had Michael Mayer at tight end. Things were good in 2 spots, quarterback, running back, receiver, not at all. So my extreme skepticism, how this offense is even more anemic than I ever imagined, just blows my mind, man. It blows my mind. The schedule is brutal. It's hard. It's just 2 weeks ago, Syracuse was a surefire win. And now we're all here saying, you're probably not going to beat Sean Tucker's crew. You're probably not being those mean orange. So I'm going to give them wins. I'm going to give them the win against Cal. Super excited to see how Jay Anott plays, though, for Cal. Stud, true freshman running back. And I'll give them Stanford. I'll give them UNLV, Navy, and BC. But, Cal and Stanford aren't even gimmies, man. So
they're not.
It remains to be seen how this is going to look. I think it's going to be ugly. It's time to start looking ahead to 2023. How sad of a sentence is that for Notre Dame fans?
I guess Brian Kelly got out when he realized everything was going to go south. Literally,
for real, he wasn't feeling it with that family at all. We'll go to the team that has the most to gain, and then maybe the team that has the most to lose as well.
So I'll start with the team that has the most to lose. I think Penn State potentially has the most to lose this weekend. You're hosting Auburn, right? You went to Auburn last year. And this is a Penn State team who, in the James Franklin era, it's kind of been 50-50 in terms of big games, if you're going to get a win or not. I'm very curious to see. This is an Auburn team, they're at Auburn. It's an Auburn team that is also kind of wishy-washy, last year, this was a primetime game in Happy Valley, right? Now this is a 3:30 kick. It's on CBS, but it's a game where I look at it and I'm kind of like, neither of these teams stand out, and neither of these teams are going to win their division because they're probably like the third or fourth, if that, best team in their division. But I do think that James Franklin, he's not on the hot seat by any means because he's gotten to bowl games, and but it's a team that I just don't see a lot of confidence in. Sean Clifford's been on and off. I'm kind of interested to see, when you go down there and you play in a heated SEC environment, and that was a game that kind of came down to the wire last year. This is an Auburn team that really doesn't have a lot to lose. I guess Brian Harsin has his job to lose, but in general, I think it's going to be a good game that I think could really swing either way. And you go, okay, well, Penn State's ranked 22nd, but I don't think Penn State's really played like a team that should be ranked so far this season. So I'm kind of curious to see, okay, when you get into an SEC environment, what does that look like?
I guess if we're going to be starting off with teams most to lose, I guess I'm going to go ahead and just say be the obvious one. I'm going to go with Texas A&M, to be honest with you. I mean, this past weekend was already bad enough for the way that they just got. I mean, I don't even think the scoreboard did it justice. I mean, if you saw that game, it was damn near obliteration by how well Cam Peoples was running the ball and how poorly Haynes King was making passes and making his decisions. This game against Miami, like, we're going from App State to Miami. I remember a lot of A&M grads at my job, they were talking things like, you know what, we're probably going to struggle with App State, but there's no way we're losing. We're probably going to win by like 10 or 14 points. It'll be a struggle, we'll win. Now you got to go up against a Miami team that all of a sudden looks so much more different than years past. Tyler Van Dyke went into the season with a lot of Heisman hype. He's probably, even though he didn't go lights out against Southern Miss last week, he's still going to build it on confidence. I still like what Mario Cristobal is doing with this team. And, I just got a different aura with Miami this year. I think, maybe it's because Rhett Lashley's not offensive coordinator anymore. I love what Miami's doing. And also, not sure if you guys saw this, but Ruben Owens, who is the number one running back recruit in the country for 2023 out of El Campo, Texas, currently committed to Louisville, was supposed to visit Kyle Field this Saturday. And then he posts on Instagram, "I'm not going no more." Recruits don't want to go to Texas A&M anymore for their official visits. I mean, that's just a benchmark. We don't know how this affects to other 4-star, some 5-star guys. This is big. This is an in-state recruit that's literally only like 50 minutes from where I'm in Houston. And schools like Texas, Texas Tech, Houston, who's flipped some Power 5 commits going over to Houston. If Dave Aranda stays at Baylor's going to be picking up a lot of Texas recruits from Texas A&M. Yeah, Texas A&M, they got the one recruiting class. Schools like Texas, when you brought in like Arch Manning and some of the recruiting guys that they're bringing in for 2023, Texas A&M ain't going to be recruiting kings anymore. This is a big game here in Kyle Field where you're going to be having so many recruits watching the game. You lose this game, you start off 1-2 to start the season, and you got Texas, who looked really good against Alabama last week. It just does not do Texas A&M any good for its image.
It's funny how you mentioned recruiting because that's kind of the premise of my team that has the most to lose. It's the University of Houston. They're moving to the Big 12. And they just lost to Texas Tech, and they have Kansas. This is supposed to be the year where Houston is supposed to go 12-0, go come high into the Big 12. All the recruits are going to see that, it's going to give them a nice boost. You can't lose to the two Big 12 teams that you play and then think that recruits are going to want to come to your school just because you're in the Big 12.
Big 12 commissioner literally came to campus this past weekend too.
Yeah, it's just not a good look for recruiting when you see that, you lost to Kansas. You're gonna get memed. Sadly, you're not you're not a big school in the state of Texas like A&M, Texas, things like that. They can afford those losses. Houston can't, so they have to show up. And Kansas isn't the team that's gonna just roll over. We've seen that now, so they can't afford to lose. They can't.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the game already, and now you're making me wish that I'm not.
And just like how I'm looking at it, and I'm not even a Houston fan, I know Houston fans are going to be looking at it like this. That game against Texas Tech is going to be one that they are going to think about each and every day for the rest of the season, because that could be the one game that interrupts their perfect season. And there is no reason, there's truly no reason that they should have ever lost that game. For my thing with the most to lose, I'm actually going with one that might surprise y'all. I'm going with Tyler Van Dyke's Heisman chances. It's just at the end of the day, this is true because I think Caleb Williams is going to run away with this award. And a lackluster day for TVD in Miami at Kyle Field would help with that. The Miami offensive line and wide receivers don't move the needle to me in any way possible. Like, I just don't see them as very good footballers. I'm sorry. It's going to be a really tough game in Kyle Field in that environment against a strong Texas A&M defense that's trying to rebound and do all that they can to make people forget about App State and come back with a really good win. I think TVD's Heisman chances are going to take a dip this week.
Yeah, I agree. But they could also take a huge jump.
They
at the same time.
They could. But Caleb Williams is going to stat pad against Fresno State later that night.
Van Dyke is a quarterback who's very intriguing because he played so well last year in so few games. Like, he wasn't named the starter until towards the end, towards later in the season. And there were some injuries. And of course, the whole thing with Manny Diaz, which was a mess. Mario Cristobal's finally in here. That's one of the games I'm very interested to watch, Liam, is just to see, okay, this is one of your first big tests for Mario Cristobal in Miami. In this season, you're on the road. Texas A&M is not an easy place to win. How does he perform? And I think it could go, it clearly could go one or two ways. That Texas A&M defense could really, really rattle his Heisman chances.
Now, how about the most to gain for you, David?
I think Nebraska has the most to gain. All right, you've gotten rid of Scott Frost, right? You paid him, $15 million. You paid Georgia Southern $1.4 million to come here so they could beat you. You've got nothing to lose now. So that means you have everything to gain, right? You have Oklahoma coming in. It's the Big 12 rival probably that you missed the most, I would have to say. It feels like a little, I'm getting the jitters back to like when Nebraska and Oklahoma every year played in the Big 12, and it always came down to the wire. It was always such a close game when, Bo Pelini on the sidelines for Nebraska. I think Nebraska, it's a clean slate now with Mickey Joseph as the head coach. You don't know really which way the program is going to go. So all you have to do is kind of, if you're a Nebraska player, put your foot down and kind of say, all right, look, we're going to kind of create this new culture. And I think this is an opportunity for Nebraska to, you have one of the best teams in the country visiting your house, make a statement. And, I don't expect Nebraska to win, but I do expect them to kind of play with some pride. And I think this could be a positive building block for that program moving forward.
My team for most to gain will be a team that I know that Liam almost hates with a passion. Texas Tech. Texas Tech. What?
Yes. Wait, why does Liam hate Texas Tech?
Did you not see his rant about what? I mean, you kind of went on like a 5-tweet rant after they cracked number 24 in our rankings.
Because they just don't deserve to be ranked. They don't deserve to be ranked.
So pretty much what I'm trying to get at right here is Texas Tech, they're about to be playing their second of what could be 3 straight ranked opponents. Houston last week, NC State this week, and they have the Longhorns in Lubbock next week. Texas Tech right now, they beat the number 25 team in Houston. Even watching back some of the clips from that game, I still don't know how to take that game because Donovan Smith, he put in a lot of impressive throws, but he put in a lot of throws where I'm like, you do this in conference play, you're not even going to be bowl eligible. That's one thing. But when you go to NC State, who always puts up among the tougher defenses in the ACC, they've been stout on defense through their first 2 games already this season. This is in Carter Finley. I just want to know, how legit is this Texas Tech defense in terms of in the secondary based on what Clayton Tune did last week? Clayton Tune only completed 51% of his passes. Texas Tech right now are only allowing like 235 yards passing per game these first 2 games. Granted, first game was Murray State. Okay, fine, I'll give you that. And also Devin Leary, he struggled against East Carolina to start the season. So I would really like to see, how's a Donovan Smith versus Devin Leary battle going to be in Carter Finley? Texas Tech, if they get this win against a number, I believe there's 16 right now in NC State. You beat NC State, you beat Houston last week. Guess what? Now you're probably going to get what is likely going to still be ranked Texas in Lubbock next week. Think about it. They have potential to get three straight ranked wins, all under Joey McGuire, all under Zach Hitley's new offense. And also right now, Texas Tech, they have the number 19 recruiting class according to 24/7 Sports. They've got it. They got something brewing up there in Lubbock. Look, as a Houston guy, it sucked to see them beat Houston last week. It sucked. But honestly, when you look at it from the other side, Tech, they have a lot of potential in what they're building up there. They can get a win against NC State and Raleigh. They honestly deserve to be among the best storylines going into week 4.
Yeah.
Can we agree that Donovan Smith needs to be the starter for the rest of the season?
Yeah, and we I'm sure we all could have agreed on that a month and a half.
I'll still say this: if Tyler Show was still quarterback last week, if he was healthy, we would not be having this conversation at all.
No, Houston wins by 15 plus.
They win by 15 plus. And honestly, they probably get more sacks. I mean, I don't even know how many sacks they got last week. Adam, do you know the stat? What did we get? Like 7 last week?
I mean, Parrish had 4 by himself.
Yeah.
Shout out Derek Parrish, transfer portal, CFB legend, by the way. But Tyler Show, I mean, look, Donovan Smith, he was still able to get out the pocket. And Tyler Show, he doesn't have that ability. I think, if Tyler Show is still the quarterback, Tech doesn't win last week, they would get absolutely obliterated going into this week. But shout out Donovan Smith. I mean, he even took that job by grabbing a bull by its horns. He did that last season, and that's what led them to beating Mississippi State in the Liberty Bowl last year too.
Mm-hmm. If I could just interject really quickly and then get to you, look, I don't hate the Texas Tech team. I just don't think that they deserve being ranked because I don't think that they won that game against Houston. I think that was so much more Houston losing it and handing that game to Texas Tech on a silver platter. I love Donovan Smith. I love Tyree Wilson. I love Joey McGuire. I love Zach Hitley. If they beat NC State this week, they will be in my top 20. That's not a question. It's just I don't think that after what happened last week was very deserving of a ranking in the slightest. If Tyler Shuck ever takes the field again to be their QB1, they will never be close to my top 25, and that's for certain because they ain't going to be winning ball games. Donovan Smith is the truth. The kid has all the tools he needs to be a great college quarterback.
But he needs to protect the ball. That's the biggest thing. He cannot throw 3 picks this week against NC State and expect to pull off another win like they did against Houston. I love my Houston boys. I absolutely do. But the pass defense that NC State has, it's much better than what Houston displayed last week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we're on the same page. I just had to confirm that. I chose a player with the most to gain, and he's replacing Quinn Ewers. I'm picking Hudson Card. Reason I chose him because last year when he kind of left a sour taste in everybody's mouth in the Texas Tech game, that was his first start, and it wasn't great, right? We all know Quinn Ewers is really good, so when he comes back, that's going to be his job. He has Arch Manning on the way next year. He's going to be playing for either a spot somewhere else. He needs to show at other schools or even Coach Sark that, if he chooses to stay till his senior year, Quinn Ewers probably won't be there. Can he be the guy? Can he quarterback a team? It's kind of an audition because he might not get another chance. If he plays bad, he might not be the quarterback next week. And that's just going to derail a lot of his. But if he plays good and he shows that he's able to carry the offense, then it's kind of like an audition tape for him. So I think he has the most to gain.
Yeah, that's a good shout for sure. I kind of cheated. I did too, because one of them's obvious. Mickey Joseph by far has the most to gain. Like, that's not even the question. Nebraska legend, as we already talked about, he's getting thrown into the fire. That got frustrated. It's kind of like that gif from Community where Troy, played by Donald Glover, walks into the room and everything's on fire. And he's just got the pizza in his hand. So he's just looking around like, what can I do? That's what Mickey Joseph has to go through here. And if he could slowly begin to put that fire out with a shocking upset win over Oklahoma, even just compete to the very end, which Nebraska fans might not like because of Scott Frost PTSD of losing so many close games. But if he were to beat Oklahoma in his head coaching debut, it's his job. There's no one else that could take that job away from him. He becomes the people's coach to get this head coaching job. They will do everything that they can to make sure Mickey Joseph is their permanent head coach if he were to slay Oklahoma. And then I went with NDSU. Why? How's the FCS powerhouse have so much to gain? Because I think with how mediocre the bottom of the top 25 is, if NDSU wins at Arizona, they are very deserving of having a shiny, nice number next to those 4 letters, NDSU. I know straight up, if they win convincing fashion at Arizona, I'm ranking them in my top 25. They are one of the best 20. They are one of the best 25 teams in the country. If you just simply stop looking at the fact that they have 3 letters that say FCS next to their name. Those guys could fly out play, and it doesn't matter what FBS team they'd be playing. They'd be competing against, probably 80% of them, I would say. The vast majority, they would, maybe that was a bad number to say. They would be competing against a vast majority of FBS teams, and that's not a question.
Those are good picks. I really hope that Nebraska is able to compete, because I feel like they might use this against him if they're not, and think he's not the guy when the whole situation is just a dumpster fire. You can't hold him accountable for that. But exactly. you know how it goes.
You do know how it goes. How about we know what games we're going to have on our TV this week? What game are you most looking forward to watching?
I am. Well, since we talked so much about Miami and Texas A&M already, I'm actually going to go with BYU at Oregon. I'm an East Coast guy, and it's not often that when on the East Coast, BYU and Oregon are kind of playing in the middle of the day. I'm excited to see what Autzen Stadium's like with this new kind of regime, Dan Lanning. But also, is BYU for real? I think it's a top 25 matchup. 2 pretty good teams that have looked good so far, but have kind of played late night games. Obviously, Oregon played, against Georgia and got killed. But I do think this is an intriguing matchup. Kind of goes to show you, where the Pac-12 is so far right now. And BYU, I think BYU has kind of a lot to prove. It's not often you kind of get to walk into a Pac-12 house and have a chance to legit win, against a really good team. So I'm curious to see, where BYU and Oregon stand, and the fact that it's a 3:30 kickoff, and makes it a lot better.
I'm curious. So mine was also BYU Oregon, so I really don't need to go. But I'm curious, as an East Coast guy, how often do y'all stay up for those late night Pac-12 games?
Oh, I love Pac-12 after dark. Now, what I will say is it depends on my work schedule. So Virginia Tech has the earliest game this week. Virginia Tech plays at 11 a.m. Eastern against Wofford. But you know what? I'm not complaining, because the game will be over by 2:30, and I'll be able to write my story, get back to my apartment, and sit down and watch college football for the rest of the day. I often stay up, and it'll probably be a long night. I'll probably stay up, and I don't know about stay up and watch the Hawaii game, but I'll probably stay up and catch a little bit of the Arizona game, because I think that'll be interesting. More North Dakota State than Arizona. I do enjoy staying up and watching Pac-12 after dark, but it honestly kind of just depends on my work schedule. Like, I was up working until Tech played at 8 p.m. Eastern against Boston College this past Saturday, and I was up working until after the latest games were over. So I didn't really get to catch a ton of those. But when I can, I love it, because you can never have too much college football, right?
Can I ask? Sorry, why is that game at 11 a.m. Eastern, the Mike Young Bowl?
so it can be on the ACC network. Essentially, they want to squeeze. Essentially, they want to squeeze a fourth game in throughout the day, so they just move it up an hour early. Yeah, money talks. Yeah.
Wow, what a boring reasoning.
Again, I'm not complaining because it'll be waking up early and everybody tailgating at the crack of dawn. That's something. But once you get into the stadium and once the game is over, it's going to be a blowout. For those of you who do not know, Wofford has not scored this season. Wofford is 0-2 and is one of the worst FCS teams and is just really bad. So of course I'm expecting them to score this week. But yeah, I'm not going to complain, especially when I get to sit back and watch BYU Oregon and then turn on the TV at 9:00 on ESPN Eastern, of course, and watch A&M Miami like that. There aren't many great games this weekend, but I'm excited to watch the good ones.
So for the game that I'm most looking forward to, most people know me as a Big Ten and a lot of South guy, but I'm gonna go with a game in the SEC, Mississippi State at LSU. I think this is a big game for Will Rogers. Will Rogers, I don't get why he's not in enough top 10, top 15 lists. The dude is just phenomenal statistically. He always has them on the highest completion percentages in college football. He's always up there in touchdown passes. Right now, after 2 games, he has 9 touchdown passes. He has a 79% completion percentage already to start the season. And it's not like he's playing FCS team. He's played Memphis and he played Arizona. Now, look, say what you want about Arizona. They're not going to be among the best teams in the country, but that's still a Power 5 and a G5. Okay, he's not playing FCS teams. And he has 763 yards after those 2 games also. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I love what he does. I've loved him since last year. And going to Death Valley at LSU, this is not a night game. This is a 5 p.m. Central game at kickoff for LSU. So it's going to obviously be sunset time-ish for LSU. I just want to know, how riled up is Death Valley going to be? Is this going to be what we normally know of Baton Rouge? Are they always going to be up? Because honestly, despite them killing Southern last week, I think nobody really cares. Nobody cares about how you beat Southern. They care more about, how bad you were against Florida State, how much of a jackass you were at that press conference after that game. And if Will Rogers goes into Death Valley and lights up that LSU defense, how is Brian Kelly going to react after the game? Even if LSU won, I still don't think Brian Kelly would be a poster child for the SEC media to live up to. But this is a great game for the SEC West. This is a massive game for Mississippi State. Mississippi State's win total for the season was only 6.5. And you obviously got to play teams like Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Texas A&M. But if Mississippi State can get a big win against LSU, they still host Texas A&M. You still got to play Arkansas, which I'm not too sure how well those two match up for each other. I would probably lean towards Mississippi State in that game. I really think this is a great game to give Mississippi State a chance to prove that they are indeed a top 25 team. They can outscore almost anybody. This is a really, really good opportunity for Mississippi State to show out. I probably should have put them in my most to gain, to be honest.
Yeah, that'll be really fun to watch. I do like how you said, did anyone actually care about the LSU Southern game? The answer is clearly no, because not even security cared when they let that guy waltz onto the field at the 10-yard line.
People go to that game for the band, for the Southern band.
Yeah,
that's the only reason they're there. That's to watch the band.
I know yours is Oregon BYU. Do you have any more you want to add to that?
Let's not spend 20 minutes talking about a cougar tail.
Okay.
Even though it's not in Oregon, let's just not do that ever again.
Very true. Hey, man, smooth transition here, because the game I'm going with is actually going to be called by those same guys, Mark Jones and RG3. It's Michigan State at Washington. I am so excited to watch this game. I've loved how Washington's offense has looked thus far. Kalen DeBoer's dogs, they look good on the offensive side of the ball. How they play against this top 15 team is going to be super fun. Michigan State's secondary is really sus, let's be honest. But Michael Penix Jr. looks revitalized. He looks really confident in his abilities. He's making really tough throws, even rolling right for this lefty and throwing to the sideline. He's doing it. So I'm really liking how Penix is looking back with the board. Jalen McMillan, man. Are you aware of what Jalen McMillan's done on just 9 catches? 23.8 yards per catch. That's 214 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he clocked like 21.5 miles an hour last week. And granted, he and Washington have not played the best competition. It's been Kent State's defense who, for some unknown reason, was able to stifle Oklahoma and hold them to 7.5, 33 total, and Portland State. But Penix, Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze, those are some dudes to look for. I think they could really exploit that Michigan State secondary. And then the guy who never gets enough attention was a coveted player in the transfer portal, UNLV linebacker, who's now back at edge rusher for Michigan State, Jacoby Windman. He is killing it. He got lost in week 1 because Jared Verse was so good. Derek Parrish was so good. This guy still has collected 5.5 sacks already at Michigan State, who, again, has only played 2 MAC teams, Western Michigan and Akron. But I believe he had 4 sacks in the opening game, too. Like, he is killing it. It's a high-caliber contest on ABC. You got to lock in and watch a really good game. I'm telling you, this could be one of the better games you watch all week. It's going to have offense. It's going to have some really solid defensive play, too. Different position groups thriving on each side, but I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, I think we'll see how good Michigan State is. That's kind of one of the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if Washington wins, they're a no doubt top 25 team, and you got to question why they didn't receive 1 vote this week. That was crazy. How about, though, kind of flipping gears here, because we haven't talked too much about a team that might be on upset alert. Who do you have on upset alert this week?
I've got Florida. Florida is a team where, it's kind of like everybody overreacted a little bit. It feels like week 1, right? Anthony Richardson came out and everybody goes, oh my God, this guy is the real deal. And he played very well. But last week, Florida was not good. They've got USF in the Swamp, 7:30. All right. It's going to be an interesting matchup. USF isn't fantastic, but USF also, I think is your average team, 1-1. They lost to BYU and beat Howard. But for USF, I compare it to something Liam and I were talking about before we came on, which is, it's a smaller in-state team playing a bigger in-state team, right? We see it all the time. The in-state team, bigger team kind of overlooks a lot of times the smaller guys, and the smaller guys are like, no, this means more to us. I'm curious to see how well USF comes out, and is Anthony Richardson the real deal, right? Yes, okay, it's not the best competition this week, but Anthony Richardson did not look good last week against Kentucky, who maybe we all need to give Kentucky even more credit than we already are giving them. But in general, I think this is a Florida team that, Anthony Richardson needs to turn it on. He can't afford to make that many mistakes, especially once they get into SEC play. And I think it's kind of a big brother, little brother thing where, if little brother wants it more, man, you better watch out.
So I'm going to jump off of a little bit of what you're saying about in-state team, little in-state team going against big in-state team. I'm going to go with Texas. Sorry, Adam. I'm going to go with Texas. And the reason why I'm going Texas is because of, I'm not going to be the guy that says like, oh my God, they've got to be on a high after only a 1-point loss. I don't believe in teams being on highs after big wins or very competitive games, but I'm going more on the UTSA side. UTSA, I think they still have an outside chance to make a New Year's Six bowl. And I don't really think we talk about it enough, because last year it felt like UTSA's premise was to be defense first and then offense second. This season, it's totally opposite. When they played Houston, despite them losing in triple overtime, they were still scoring at will, especially in that second quarter versus Houston. And against Army last week, they were trading shots back and forth, left and right. And then UTSA eventually came out. Frank Harris, Joshua Cephas, Zachary Franklin, that is almost a holy trinity in terms of Texas quarterback, wide receiver trios, if we want to put it that way. But I really love what UTSA is doing. I love watching their offense. I typically hate watching left-handed quarterbacks. Guess what? Frank Harris is making me love it. I love what Frank Harris is doing with those guys. Brandon Brady, you know what? He's not Sincere McCormick from last year, but I absolutely love how Brandon Brady is running the ball. He's a bigger, tougher guy. And Texas, you know what? The only reason why I'm putting Texas really on upset alert from Texas's perspective is I don't know how mobile Hudson Card's going to be this week. He's obviously not going to be 100% healthy. I saw something that Texas's number 3 quarterback, Malik Murphy, he's not even healthy. Sark didn't even say he was healthy. So now I'm really reasoning a lot of questions in my mind of how is Texas going to really move the ball against UTSA? It could very well be a shootout. I might bet the over on this game, to be honest with you. But in terms of UTSA's perspective, I love the way that they move the ball. I love the receiving core. I think this is the type of game where if Cephas and Zachary Franklin, if they move the ball well enough to yards after catch, it's going to be all guns blazing all game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the clear ones. I mean, if Bijan in Texas isn't able to run the ball, I don't see how they're able to just keep up with UTSA.
And here's the thing. Remember, you know about as well as I do. Houston struggled to run the ball against UTSA also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little different. We have number 5, but it is true. Mine, I'm gonna go with the Mickey Joseph revenge game. I'm going the Oklahoma Sooners. They're going to Lincoln, and we all know about Nebraska and how their past, right? They still have some talent on that team. Casey Thompson, he's played Oklahoma before. His dad played at Oklahoma. It could get personal, and if Oklahoma takes them lightly, when motivation is a big factor in a lot of these games, and Nebraska could be really motivated to play for their coach. If they really like Mickey Joseph, that helps, especially when they weren't really feeling Scott Frost. They could be up for that game, and if Oklahoma is not, they will lose because Nebraska does have talent despite it not being used correctly.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those are really good shouts. I do want to touch on the UTSA one too. Don't sleep on DeCorian Clark at receiver too, because that's just another bad man that they've got in UTSA's receiving core. And I would just say, speaking to your point, Andrew, of it looks like a complete flip-flop of last year, I would just kind of disagree with that. I think their offense was dang good last year. They were one of the highest scoring teams in the country too. This year, it's just that Sincere's not there anymore, and Frank Harris has taken another step in his development and looks like looks like an absolute stud. And the growth in his game and not having to depend on a running game as much has just opened up this offense so much more, and being able to throw the ball all over the place. Frank Harris, we've known, could throw a bucket ball blindfolded. He's showing that once again. It's just that team is so dang good. They are so special, so fun to watch. One of the easiest groups of guys to root for in the country. I am sorry, Adam. I hope Meep gets it done, man. It's nothing personal. It's all just, how can you not root for UTSA when they're playing someone that you're not a fan of? Those guys know what, Liam? So good.
Take that banner down behind you. You don't deserve it.
I will. It won't be there next
Take
show.
It down.
It won't be there next show.
Also, it does feel like the absolute most Texas thing to do, to come off such a high and then to just be so low. I mean, it's historical. I don't believe it. I don't believe in emotions being played like that in football, but it's just an aura that just happens. That just feels like it would.
I mean, emotions definitely play like that. We saw it with Houston. They came off an emotional win against UTSA, and they scored 3 points. And
we talked about for months, because we're struggling to find what content to possibly produce and what to talk about in the dead of the offseason. How often did we bring up Texas and their stretch of Alabama and UTSA back to back and say, oh, if Texas were to do the unthinkable and win, they'd still lose to UTSA the next week. Oh, if Texas was to still even compete, it would be the most Texas thing ever to lose to UTSA this week. Quinn Ewers goes down, man. Like, it's looking like that's really going to be the case. It truly could happen. My upset pick, though, I have to go different. And I'm worried about it now because of those beautiful helmets that were unveiled today. But Kansas State, you are on the watch list, man. Tulane's coming to town, and we know that they played Oklahoma dang close last year. A frightening contest. I just truly believe that Tulane wins this game, and I think this is one that's going to fly under the radar. Nobody's really going to be locked in on it. It's on ESPN Plus. I'll eat my own words if this doesn't happen. But man, Tulane's offense has big play potential, and they've got playmakers all over the place. Michael Pratt, it's his first test of the season, but he's been showing that growth necessary and could really put the tools together to be a good quarterback. I'm seeing the promise that this talented gunslinger has and has shown in recent games over the last few years. And then the rushing attack, you've just got monsters everywhere. You've got Tyjae Spears, you've got Iverson Celestine, among others. Shea Wyatt, Jaquan Jackson, Lawrence Keys III, all solid receiving threats. Like, they've got guys everywhere. And I know Kansas State's defense is good. Tulane's offense is good. It's going to be fun to see how that plays out. Tulane's defense hasn't been tested yet. I'm not sure what to make of it. Kansas State's offense, in my opinion, if Deuce Vaughn ain't touching that rock, this offense is poor. Adrian Martinez hasn't turned the ball over once this year. He is due for a turnover or two, maybe three. I don't know. I'll guarantee.
The only reason why he hasn't committed turnovers is because he hasn't had volume.
Yeah, and he hasn't done quite anything this year, and he's going to have to throw the ball in this game. He can't get away with 9 of 20 like he had last week for 101 yards. But that stuff isn't flying. There is no way that I could ever put money on an Adrian Martinez-led ball club. Tulane is going to go into the Little Apple and stun everyone there.
Okay.
I like that. I like that pick. Like, I think, no, I don't know, man. Those uniforms they unveiled today, those helmets.
Yeah,
that worries me. But I mean, we've seen so many teams before that have unveiled really cool things and then just absolutely crap the bed. So it would not surprise me if that happened, especially because I think Tulane is probably better than they've looked this year.
And we have to even consider, K-State's bringing out those beauties of helmets. Tulane's uniform game is mean too. And if they're bringing out the Angry Wave helmets for this contest, that's going to be an all-time helmet matchup. But let's move on to, we still got to talk about him, even though he's out of the sport for a time being. Scott Frost, quickly predict who the next head coach is going to be that gets fired.
I've got Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. I think I'm surprised he honestly didn't get fired last year. I think there's a little bit of promise, but it's gotten to the point where Georgia Tech fans are kind of fed up with him. It's not one of those schools like Nebraska where fans are dying and they're like, we'll pay your buyout. That's Georgia Tech's a school where they rode Paul Johnson all the way. This is a school that if they're not winning football games, they kind of just go, okay, we're not winning football games, but we don't really care that much. And it is what it is. And they're the same school that employs Josh Pastner basketball wise. I think in general, Georgia Tech is, they've got a chance this week to prove something with Ole Miss coming into town, that's 3:30 game on ABC. That is a chance for Georgia Tech to prove something, but I don't think Jeff Collins makes it more than the next couple weeks.
Is it bad that Jeff Collins is also my next head coach to get fired?
Nope. I mean, that just means it might be happening.
His overall record is 10-26 at Georgia Tech.
It's 10-26 in 3+ seasons. He's never finished better than 6th in the Coastal. Even during the COVID year, they finished 12th when they did no divisions. I actually looked up what his buyout would be. If they would have fired him after 2021, it would have been around 10.2. If they wait until the end of the season, it'll be around 7.2. So I think right now, if you do the math, it'll probably be between 9.5 million, probably around that area. Georgia Tech is an institution that's got like a ton of money. I mean, if they want to turn over the football program, they could cough that up in one check if they really wanted to. I mean, also it's like what you're saying. Look, they obviously bring in Ole Miss this weekend. That's obviously a big weekend, a big game for them. But they have to go to UCF at the Bounce House, and then they have to go to Pitt. That could very easily be an 0-3 stretch for them. Already for them. Also, they go to correct me if I'm wrong, but do they go to Duke or do they host Duke at home whenever they play the next week?
I think I was actually just looking up their schedule, but it's not like it's the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
They host Duke.
They host Duke. Okay. I mean, if they lose to Duke, I mean, don't even put them on the same bus.
But look at the way they end their season, right? They have Florida State, who, obviously it's Florida State. We don't know how, if they're going to continue to improve or not. But they come to Blacksburg. They play Virginia Tech. Then they've got Miami, North Carolina, and Georgia at the end of the season. So you got Florida State, Virginia Tech, Miami, North Carolina, and Georgia are your last 5 games of the year. And they might not even make it past UCF, Pitt, or Duke. I mean, or Virginia. Like, it's like find 2 or 3 wins on there on that schedule for Georgia Tech. That's really, really tough.
I mean, truthfully, look, I don't know how many candidates are there for next coaches to be fired, because truthfully, I really couldn't find that many, especially programs that, like, I would have said Mike Norvell for Florida State, but he's finally got him on somewhat of a consistency right now. So I don't think they'll fire him. His buyout's still way too high for them to fire him already. But I look at Georgia Tech, and it's kind of like, if they had an easier schedule towards the backside, I could see them making the cut early. But now that you kind of like brought up to my attention, like, just how tough it is, it wouldn't even matter if you had an interim coach. You would still lose the games.
Same result, yeah.
You lose the same game, get the same result, and you would just be paying more in buyouts if you decided to fire him right away.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I have a question for y'all. Say UCLA has a down year. Do you think they let Chip Kelly go before they move to the Big Ten?
What's his buyout?
I don't remember the number of his buyout, but I could tell you this: UCLA fans and boosters won and gone after last season. And
I know that.
Happened, so, like, it's just a mess, and that's all I could really say.
He was who I was leaning towards, but I wasn't sure what the buyout was and stuff.
Look, if they were to do the unthinkable and lose to the worst Power 5 team in the country in Colorado, and then kind of go on the skid after that, then maybe it happens in season. But I couldn't see it happening till after the SC game, if it even would happen, which it should happen. But look, again, I don't want to go on a tangent or anything, but worst Power 5 recruiting team in the country is literally us, and we lost a long snapper. We lost a long snapper. A long snapper decommitted. When have you ever seen a long snapper actually decommit and make a graphic for it? That doesn't happen. UCLA can't recruit anything. Chip needs to figure it out. It's a mess there. I don't know. When you're moving incoming freshman tight ends to go play quarterback now, things are bizarre.
I was gonna say UCLA's got money, but based on the last home game for them, I don't even know how much they're making in ticket revenue. To be honest,
they've been in debt for a bit. So
I just looked it up. It looks like Kelly's buyout is only like $4 to $5 million. So I don't know, man. Liam, if you want to press that button,
I pressed the button a long time ago, and I demanded Dave Aranda. It didn't happen.
Sorry about that, Liam. Sorry.
Hey, you're good, man. You want me to go mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is happening real soon. I'm talking, this is happening possibly as soon as a little after September 22nd. Neil Brown, you are digging your own grave deeper and deeper. after these inexplicable coaching decisions and losses. There's no reason that you should have lost the game to Pitt. That game fell on you and you only, my man. Then you're losing to Kansas in overtime. And you're not even just losing to Kansas in overtime. You're losing to Kansas in overtime by 2 possessions. That's not easy to do. If you are to go out there and beat Towson this week, I applaud you. Huge win against a mediocre FCS team. If you lose that Thursday night game against Virginia Tech and you do it in a fashion that y'all look like some garbage again, your job is over. And I like you, Neil Brown. I like rooting for you. I can't wait to see you get back on your feet at another program. Hopefully it's a GO5 because that's where you're going to do your damage. You're not fit to coach West Virginia, and that's been evident for 2+ years now, man. And I believe his record would be 18-22 if they were to beat Towson and lose to Virginia Tech. West Virginia fans aren't having this. They're disgusted. They're going to move the needle enough to get him up on out of there as soon as possible.
So just because I was curious, and maybe it's an overreaction based on what happened this past weekend, and maybe it was more paranoia after the Scott Frost firing. But I looked up what Paul Chryst' contract is at Wisconsin, and he's not getting fired as much as I would like to hope so, because I looked into it. He got approved for a new contract back in January of this year. He currently had a 5-year extension that went into 2027, and also had his salary raised from $4.5 to $5.5 million per year until 2027. So as much as I want Jim Leonhard to take over the reins at Wisconsin, it doesn't look like, Paul's got a bunch of bad losses. He's not been Wisconsin's only been to the Big Ten title game only once since 2018. I look at this and I think Wisconsin's kind of screwed themselves over. And Wisconsin is a university that does have a ton of money, but at the same time, they're not coughing up a buyout for him as much as I would personally like to believe so.
Yeah, and we'll move along and we'll start going a little quicker here because we are running a bit long here. We'll go to hot take / bold prediction. I'm just going to say mine real quick. Fresno State and SC combined for 90+ points.
I think I talked about Penn State was one of those teams that has the most to lose this week. I think they do lose. I think Auburn wins, and the hot seat around James Franklin starts to get a little hotter.
I got one for y'all. Iowa will score triple the touchdowns this Saturday as they have all season. But I will also add a caveat that Spencer Petras will throw for 1 touchdown.
That is a gross prediction.
Well, think about who they're playing. They're playing.
I know they're playing. I'm not saying it's not a good prediction. I'm just saying it's gross. It's just gross to think about that we've got to pick pennies.
I think
that
when you tell someone hey, I think a team's going to get 3, I think they're going to triple their season count on touchdowns in one game. And you probably think this up, okay, great. It's Iowa. Okay, they're probably going to get the 3 touchdowns on defense by themselves.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. It's a good prediction.
I'm going to say Nebraska beats Oklahoma.
All right.
Wow.
I like it.
I think they do it.
Dude, the scenes in Lincoln, if that happens, would be absurd.
It just feels like
Scott Frost would never
style.
be allowed within a 5-mile radius
of
Lincoln ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll move on to player focus as well. Do this every week. 1 Power 5 guy, 1 Group of 5 / FCS guy.
So my Power 5 guy, both these guys are quarterbacks. My Power 5 guy, and I mentioned them in the interesting storyline I'm looking at this week, Garrett Schrader, the Syracuse quarterback. He's had a really, really good season so far. I think Robert Nye, the new offensive coordinator, came in, helped him out a lot. He's been one of the highest grading quarterbacks by PFF. I think week 1, he was the highest grading quarterback. He's put up really good numbers. He's completed 79% of his passes. He's 38 for 48 for 528 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he's rushed for 3 touchdowns and 118 yards too. he's getting it done, and I think this is a really good test for Syracuse. For my group of 5 player, I'm going with Frank Harris of UTSA, and I like the Roadrunners. I think it's obviously going to be tough. They're coming to the big house in Texas. You know, you're playing the big school, right? You're playing the big fish. But Frank Harris is an exciting player to watch, and honestly, you could say that UTSA should be 2-0 after they lost on that heartbreaker to Houston at the very end of the game back week 1. But Frank Harris, let me read you his stats real quick. 60 for 88 passing for 696 yards. He's completed 68% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing, he's got 1 rushing touchdown and 93 yards. He helps make this UTSA offense go, and I'm not sure that they're going to beat Texas this week. I do think it'll be close, but he's a guy I really enjoy watching just because the way he carries himself. Both of those quarterbacks, they lead by example, and I think both of those quarterbacks are reasons why their teams might have success this week.
So my Power 5 player focus is going to be Texas Tech quarterback Donovan Smith. I'm just going to go ahead and keep it really short because I know I spoke a lot about it at the beginning when I was talking about Tech having the most to gain. Tech is only going to go as far as Donovan Smith's going to take them. We've seen it. We saw it against Houston last week. He could run the ball if he needs to. He's not afraid to throw it downfield. The reason why I think Donovan Smith is going to be my player focus for the week is because while he is obviously very dynamic and he could throw a lot of passes, he needs to cut down on turnovers, and that's it. I mean, it's going to be very close. It's going to be very close first half at least. If he keeps a clean game, I think Texas is going to be there till the end. My group of 5 player, I hate to go UTSA again, but I'm going to go with Joshua Cephas. Joshua Cephas this year has been unreal. He's already got 218 yards through 2 games. He's got 17 catches. Those are typically wide receivers for maybe an average wide receiver 1, but he's doing that as a wide receiver 2. He's a very good wide receiver 2. He's been used as a decoy a lot. I saw it a lot when they played Houston. We already know about Zachary Franklin. If UTSA is going to beat Texas, Cephas needs to show out, and he'll probably need to average about 150 yards. He'll probably need to have 150 yards in this game. We already know about Zachary. I expect UT to cover Zachary a lot. I think Cephas is going to have a big game on Saturday.
Very nice, very nice. I'll go through mine real quick too. We talked about him before. I think Liam mentioned it. Tyler Van Dyke. This is one of his Heisman games. Every Heisman winner, they have those games where they got to show up, and he's going into Kyle Field. I mean, I want to see what he does because if you want to win the Heisman, you got to win these games. And my second one is UTSA again. feel like we're jinxing my boys, but Zachary Franklin. I think this is the only Power 5 school that UTSA plays. We've seen Texas's defense has been extremely improved. This is kind of what I know he has NFL aspirations. This is a game where if he's able to go out there and really show that he can play against, and I'm not going to say elite defense, but a really good defense, then for NFL scouts, I think it'll really shoot him up the draft board, which, I know that's what he wants. So I'm going to keep an eye on those two.
Yeah. And as I like to say, this isn't a game for Zachary Franklin. It's a business opportunity.
Yes.
Opportunity to make a lot of money with a huge game. And just there's a reason 3 of you took UTSA guys on offense. It's because their offense is so simple. It's so beautiful to watch. They're going to be so good all year, of course. For my Power 5 guy, I'm making history. The first offensive lineman, the first center that we've ever had in a player focus, Georgia's Cedric Van Pran. SVP is the best center in the country, and I don't know how often I've had to say this to people. I've said it since the national championship and last year. He is a legit first-round talent. The tape that this guy's been able to create is phenomenal, and it's really insane considering that he's just a redshirt sophomore. He was able to start every game for a national championship winning team as a redshirt freshman in the SEC. If that's not impressive, what is? He's a mauler with nimble feet, got that nasty streak too. Just watch what he'll do after a play. He's going to make sure that you're on the ground for a while. That's just what he does. His upper body strength is 99 overall, straight up, man. SVP is a stupendous run blocker. He gets downfield often to help that Georgia running attack make big plays happen. The kid is a monster. I just wish more people talked about the elite talent that is Cedric Van Pran, the next great SVP in the sports industry. And then UAB running back to Wayne McBride. He didn't get play in week 1 because he was sick. He played in week 2. He was sick. He is such a good talent. He ran for 177 and a touchdown, 20 carries. NFL eyes are on him as well. We're going to see how he looks. A lot of people are going to be watching this game. I think he's going to be able to explode for 200 plus rushing yards. He's someone that UAB's running backs coach Henley Brigham said is the best running back in UAB history, and he will be a top 5 running back in the country this season. If your running back coach is saying that, that's all I need to hear, because all I know is you're going to get the touches needed to make sure that that statement holds true. Dwayne McBride is a freak, man. Like, watch this kid play. He's got the ideal build at 5'11", 215, runs with a purpose, great balance, doesn't turn the ball over. He's got the juice. He's a dang good player. And we'll move on to game picks, man. And we'll do this real quick. Florida State, Louisville, David.
I've got Florida State. They're coming off a open week. They did not play this past week. Louisville hasn't looked great to me. I've got the Noles.
I'm going to go with Louisville. I like Molly Cunningham a lot. I'm not 100% sold on Florida State just yet, just because I don't think LSU's that good. And they played DeKen. So I'm going to take Louisville. I think they're bouncing back after that Syracuse loss a couple weeks ago. I got the Cardinals.
I'm taking Florida State. I like Louisville's talent, but I don't think they know how to use them.
Thank goodness you said that. Louisville has Satterfield's offense reeks. They have too much talent to have just 27 points in 8 quarters, man. It's not right. The offensive line that they've got with Chandler and Reed going up against Jared First is going to be super fun, but I've got Florida State. We'll move on to BYU, Oregon.
Yeah, I've got the Ducks. I think Oregon at home, it's going to be a really, really interesting game, tough environment. I've got some questions about BYU. I think this one is probably going to come down to the wire. But, yeah, I've got the Ducks in a close one.
This is a game that's going to be at Autzen. Bo Nix did really good against Eastern Washington, but then again, it's Eastern Washington. Okay, it's not exactly BYU. I always feel like BYU always makes a slip whenever they're expected to do good. So I'm going to go with Oregon, but only because it's an Autzen.
I'm going to take BYU. I'm all aboard the BYU in the New Year's Six Bowl, so I think they got to win this game.
As much as I want to pick BYU, the gut saying the home team gets it done. Quack, quack. Penn State, Auburn.
I've got Auburn. I already said, man, Penn State has a lot to lose, and I think they're going to lose. I think Brian Harsin and Tank Bigsby, man, he is fun. He's fun to watch. I think Auburn does it at home, and James Franklin, he's on the hot seat.
See, you said Tank Bigsby. I'm going to give you another running back that I'm actually a huge fan of, Nick Singleton, who was the number one running back in recruiting last year. He's been solidified the number 1 running back in that Penn State offense. Am I a little intimidated that's in Jordan Hare? A little bit, but I still like Nick Singleton a lot. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. I think Penn State just barely squeezed it out.
I agree with Andrew. I think it's going to be a very slow, low-scoring game. That's Big Ten football, though, so I'm going to take Penn State.
The quarterback play in this game is so dreadful. Unless we are blessed with Drew Allar's presence, please let Drew Allar enter the game. Hopefully it's not due to injury, though, for Clifford. But I'm taking Penn State. I do completely agree with you, though, David. James Franklin is mad overrated. Mississippi State, LSU on deck.
I've got Mississippi State. I think LSU is a team. I don't know. I just don't really believe in Brian Kelly. I think it's a lot of talk right now, not a lot of product on the field. This is a game he can prove that to me and to a lot of other people, kind of his first test of SEC football. But I've got Mississippi State. Go Cowbells.
I'm going with Mississippi State too. Like I said, I love Will Rogers. I love the production that he was able to lead onto the field against Arizona and Memphis. Mississippi State, I think they're going to win by 10 to 14 points. I don't think Death Valley is going to really be that intimidating for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it 4 straight road wins for me. I'm taking Mississippi State. I don't think Brian Kelly has really settled in at LSU yet. I think Mississippi State wins.
Only picking them because I knew I'd be in the minority. The Fam Ali finds a way, going with LSU. Texas Tech, NC State on what's going to be a really fun game.
I've got NC State at home. They were my pick when I voted as a media member to win the ACC. Devin Leary is a really good quarterback. He did get a little rattled a couple weeks ago against ECU, but I think this NC State team is better than what they've looked so far. Texas Tech comes into town, and I think this is a game that the Wolfpack prove themselves. I'm going NC State.
NC State wins, Tech covers. I still think this is going to be a close game up until the third quarter. I think NC State does pull out towards the end.
I'm also going to NC State. I don't think Tech gets lucky this time.
This is going to be a massive game for Devin Leary. I think it's going to be a blowout win. He's going to carve. I'll take the Wolfpack by 20 plus.
Of course you do, Liam. You hate Texas Tech.
Why? I can't believe you. I can't believe you referenced that. Good reference. Good reference. Okay, whatever. SMU Maryland.
I've got Maryland. I think Talia Tagovailoa. I think Maryland's got some pretty good offense. This one could end up being a shootout. I'm going the Terps.
It's not just Talia Tagovailoa against Tanner Mordecai. This is also Rakeem Jarrett against Rashee Rice. I'm going to bet the over on this game, that's for sure. But I love both the offenses. I think this is it's got potential to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. I think Maryland's going to pull it out at College Park. I do like the Terps.
Yeah, I agree with what y'all said. It's going to be very electric. I'm taking Maryland because they're at home.
Also picking Maryland, but at the end of the day, I don't care who wins. It's an opportunity for us to watch 2 superb passing attacks, and we get to watch Rashee Rice and Rakim Jarrett grace the same field. 2 elite receivers. Let's have some fun. Miami, Texas A&M, not that same amount of offensive fun.
No, but I do think Tyler Van Dyke, he's gonna have to do a little bit himself, but I think Miami can spoil the party in Aggie land. I'm just not sold on Texas Tech. We talked about their quarterback issues earlier. We know who Miami's quarterback is going to be, and this is a chance for Tyler Van Dyke to prove himself. I know we talked about and said that his Heisman might be in question, but I think Miami wins this one in College Station.
I'm going to take the Canes. I think Tyler Van Dyke's going to have a strong performance. Haynes King, as long as he's at quarterback, I'm not picking A&M to win a big game, to be honest with you. It's honestly gotten to that point. Shout out Henry Parrish Jr. He's averaging over 100 yards a game right now. Granted, Miami hasn't had the best competition, but based on what Cameron Peoples did last week, I think Parrish is going to have a great game.
I'm taking Texas A&M. I think their back is against the wall. They hear all the trash that has been said, and they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder and show everybody. They're going to shut everybody up.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, Miami's offensive line reeks. The receiving room reeks. It's a very similar situation to what Clemson's got, what they had last year when everyone thought DJ was the man. He wasn't good, but his support didn't help him either. I'm taking A&M in this mid-off, and I will not have that banner up there next week either. So
you're gonna need some new wall decorations next week.
Yeah, we need some. I don't know, Idaho. Yeah, Jabor Gibbs, man, let's go. NDSU Arizona.
Oh, I'm going NDSU, North Dakota State. I think again Arizona hasn't really looked good at all. I mean, if anything, they've looked horrendous. They had the great play of the week, which was like a you had one job kind of thing on College Game Day. I'm sure we'll see that on Saturday. If you saw this No Context College Football Twitter account, you know exactly the play I'm talking about. Arizona just hasn't looked good, and North Dakota State. Liam, you talked earlier about how good North Dakota State actually is. I think this is a chance for him to prove himself. I've got the Bison.
I'm going to go with Arizona. and I really have no strong leaning in this game. Truthfully, if I get this wrong, I'm not really going to care at all. Real reason why I'm going with Arizona is because I'm still a big Jacob Cowing fan from what he did at UTEP, and he's honestly been good at Arizona, one of the few shining spots. So, yeah, sure, bear down.
I'm taking NDSU. I just think they're just miles better than Arizona, unfortunately.
As much as I love Jacob Cowing, I haven't gotten the opportunity to interview him yet. We've interviewed Cody Malk and Noah Gindorf of NDSU on our channel, 2 studs, but the nation's going to get to watch Hunter Lipke. We're talking about a fullback that gets reps at tight end and running back too. If you want to see a future NFL fullback, if you're a sicko like that, Hunter Lipke's that guy. You might see a leg dab or 2 in this game as well. NDSU's taking it. Shiny number 25 next to their name next week. UCF FAU.
I've got UCF, though I think FAU covers. I think this could be a really, really tight one. UCF's looked okay. I think they could look better. But I think FAU is kind of one of those teams that might sneak up on you a little bit. And it's kind of a little bit deceptive. They might be better than they actually look. I've got the Golden Knights. I think they get the job done, but I do think it's going to be a close one.
Let's go ahead. Let's just be honest. UCF, they did not look well last week. Plumlee did not look great. I think UCF bounces back only because I think they have more talent than FAU. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Knights on this one.
I'll make it 3 for 3. I'm taking UCF.
Yeah, I'm also taking UCF. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention that's our transfer portal CFB group of 5/FCS game of the week. Plus 4 UCF picks for us. Let's go to the Power 5 transfer portal CFB game of the week. Michigan State at Washington.
I think the Spartans is a chance for them to prove themselves. Peyton Thorne, Jalen Berger, you go into Washington, it's an environment that you don't get to play in very often in non-conference games. And I think the Spartans take advantage of it. I don't think it's going to be a very flashy game from their perspective necessarily. I think it's going to take some pretty good defense to win this game. But I do think Michigan State pulls out a really close one in Washington.
Jalen Berger. I'm going to go with Michigan State too. Not just because of Jalen Berger, but because of their other really good running back, Jarek Broussard, former Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year when he was at Colorado. Guess what? It goes back into a Pac-12 environment. I'm not the biggest Peyton Thorne guy, but I do think he can open up spaces for those 2 running backs also. I like Michigan State, but in a really close and honestly low-scoring game.
I'm going to take the Huskies. Michael Penix, Jalen McMillan. I think they're going to show everybody that they're for real this year, and maybe it might be a Big Ten audition. Who knows?
I think that this is a wake-up call for college football fans because Kalen DeBoer is cooking. He's got a chef hat on. The offense looks electric. They're going to score points. I don't see it being lower scoring. Woof, woof, man. Roma Dunze is in for a big game too. Look out for the Bishop Gorman product there. And, hey, that'll do it for this week 3 preview. And we can't thank you enough, David. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was really fun, and maybe I could do it again sometime. This is fun.
Definitely. Maybe we could get you back in during bowl season or something. And, we wish you the best of luck on your picks. We wish the best of luck to those playing in our pick'em pool. You'll beat me. No sweat there. And, hey, please make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on Spotify and all that fun stuff too. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Really appreciate y'all. See ya.